My name is Johan Lonn. I'm an innovation consultant and product owner in the Capgemini Applied Innovation Exchange. And I led this year's project that we were doing with the World Rugby Sevens. Although I don't know too much about rugby, I've learned a lot, so feel free to correct me as we go along. Capgemini and rugby have a long relationship together, you may or may know. We've been working, well, Capgemini's company has been really excited about rugby for over 25 years now. And we've been sponsoring everything from small local teams to national teams. Just I think it was a week or two ago now, we had the yearly Capgemini UK versus Capgemini France rugby competition, which was exciting, I think. And I think France won again, not so good. But anyways, 2017, Capgemini became the global innovation partner for the HSBC World Rugby Sevens, which is really exciting. And to start off, I'm going to play a short video to say a bit more about that relationship.
Agility, speed, disruption, competitive edge. In rugby, as much as in business, people matter, results count. Capgemini has loved rugby for over 25 years and loves it now in its most innovative form, the Rugby Sevens. As with our clients, we proudly bring innovation to Rugby Sevens to enhance the experience of the fans, the coaches, and of course, the players. All over the world, our 200,000 employees enable your success. By innovating to exceed your expectations, we help you to be ahead of the game. Be ahead of the game.
Cool. So, something that makes me really excited about this relationship is a lot of times people just put in a bit of money behind a brand or something just to get their exposure out there. All you want to do is get your brand out there, but we wanted to do something else. We, of course, want to see our logo in the field and all that, but we want to become a true innovation partner and work with them to provide sustained innovation throughout the years we're sponsoring them. So the journey started out in about 2017, where we did a lot of user research. So working with our colleagues in IDN, we went out to South Africa, for example, spent a lot of time interviewing fans, commentators, players to understand what are your pain points today, what do you really want to know? And one of the topic areas we've kind of settled on was the fan engagement. So how do we improve fan engagement? This is really key to World Rugby and they're really excited about that. So really quickly we came up with over 50 concepts using some of our techniques that we have, and some of those got down selected, and over the last couple of years, we built a couple. So in a second, I'll touch on the match predictor, which is really excited. We've also been doing some AR stuff. How can you bring a traditional match day magazine to life by using AR in it? You might also have seen the rugby VR kicking downstairs, where you can kick some balls in VR, which is quite fun as well. And yeah, so we've been doing a lot of that. We also ran something called Scrum Sevens, which is all about finding startups. So what are the startups that are working in this space and to do with fan engagement, to do with player welfare? And we held a competition in a few different places around the world, London being one of them, where we had about 8 startups come in and do a big pitch day to some Capgemini folks, some rugby players, and from there we selected a couple of winners. And we're really excited that one of them, Spock, has actually now started working with World Rugby globally. It's all about anyone being able to do commentator. So one of the issues you might know is that a lot of commentating is in English, but there's a huge growing market in Japan, for example, and some of these other countries. But how do you get more local commentators without having to fly teams around the world really expensively? So they provide a technology where basically anyone can become a commentator from home. But one of the other exciting things we did was a match predictor. So you want to play against your friends, see how good you are, predict the scores, have a bit of a competition. But we also built an AI bot in there that allowed us to actually predict the games. And it's really exciting. It actually ended up one of, I think, top 5 in the table. So it's actually really good using past results. So I'm going to show a quick video on that as well, and then talk about what we've been doing this year. see around if you sit and watch rugby is there's a lot of people actually sit around on little stools with flip charts and actually mark down every time anything happens. So anytime there's a pass, ruck, scrum, anything, they mark it down manually, and that's where you get a lot of your stats. So when you see it then again, there were 200 passes or something like that. That's all done manually today, which is quite a slow turnaround process. It's quite a big pain point. So we want to see what can be done. So we turned to video analytics. Video analytics is really up and coming. You're seeing it everywhere. You might have seen some of the work IBM are doing with Wimbledon, for example, with some of the tennis and all that. But a lot of that is actually putting in dedicated hardware. So putting new cameras at different angles. We turn to the real match footage. So this is footage that's there already. So working with the providers, we can actually see what we can do with this real video analytics, which is quite exciting because it adds new angles to it. But not having the raw footage, 1 minute someone might be running to the right or left, whatever way it becomes familiar. All of a sudden, the camera angle changes. It looks like they're running the other way, but they're still running the same way, which for analytics is quite challenging at times. So we put together a team. You can see me, you can see Ashwarya, we'll be talking a bit later as well. A multidisciplinary team from our I&D team, our DCX team, our AI team. So it's a mix of designers, coders, developers, user researchers, which was a kind of a good mix to come up with some really interesting ideas for this. We then built a solution using a mix of technologies. So at the base, we use Amazon recognition as a good foundation. But what we found quite quickly is that you can't really recognize rugby very easily. There's a lot of models for spotting a chair, a person, even recognizing the ball. That's quite easy. But rugby is quite a difficult game. You rugby fans in the room probably know that people run into each other, people lay on top of each other in piles on the pitch at times, and that's really difficult with the current technology that's out there. So we ended up building some of our own technologies. So as part of that, we took the videos, we split them up, each frame by frame, and we actually had a team of people come in to tag a lot of images, because we had to build a training set that we can then run through our models and learn over time. So I'm going to show, this is the original footage. This is how it comes in from a match. This is just raw footage that you will see on TV as you're sitting at home. You can see who's winning. Oh, it's tie at the moment. So what we did is we started tagging it. We started creating boundary boxes around it so we can recognize different events. And by tagging lots of training images, we could build up this data. And you can see it's relatively accurate, actually. And the more images we get in, the more training we can do, the better it will get. What we then did is we started counting that up. So once we know, we can see how many, you can see some of the things we're doing there, jump catches, tackles, rucks. And by taking that data, we can then export that and bring it to life for people. So that's now doing the job of what those people used to do manually. Granted, there's still more work that's needed. I'm not going to say it's perfect yet, but it's starting to show what's the art of the possible with there. We also started looking at what other things can you recognize, such as logos from different providers, and I'll come back to that in a second. But using some of these points became really important when you're talking about recognizing things. So you saw the big HSBC logo in the middle. If we can recognize that in the footage, we know they're running roughly in the middle of the pitch, which is quite good when you're trying to zoom in and out. Because if an image is really zoomed in and you can see part of that, at least we know where they are on the field. So you can do some kind of interesting things combining it. Similarly, if you see the two poles, you know they're probably at the end of a line. And based on where the logos are locating, we can then know which side of it. So it's not just the players we're looking for and some of the actions, we're looking at some of the things that kind of impact what decisions we might make. So I talked about user research. So we spend a lot of time understanding what the users want. It's good just creating something, but if there's no value for them, what's the point? So we spend a lot of time talking to commentators, the people who might use the data up front during the game to commentate. We talked to the super fans who were really excited about seeing, they want as much data as possible. Whereas I might be interested in, what was the final score, who scored. They want to know everything. So there's a lot of those fans out there. And we also talked to some of the players. So how could they use some of this data going forward? So if we go through the different ones, look at the fans. The fans as I said, wanted to know more data, they wanted more insights. And what we did is, we created some animations of what this could look like in the future. So if we hold all the historic data, so for player A, for example, we know how often he runs, how quickly he runs, how often he tackles, how successful he is. We can start building predictive models to see how likely is something to exceed. You might be seeing some of this coming into Formula One, and AWS has done some work on this. And so we're looking to take some of that data and pass it on. Similarly, what's the chance of this conversion? So this becomes really exciting when you can kind of almost start playing against your friends, saying, you know, I think this is going to win, this is not, and looking at what the algorithm is going to say in the background. For the sponsors, so I touched on the data that's available to sponsors. As Capgemini, you know, we're a sponsor. HSBC is another one. They want to know how much return on investment they are. And, you know, you're putting lots of money into it, so how visible is my brand? So what we can start doing is, I talked about how we can recognize the different logos. We can start counting up. How many times have we seen it? How long was it in a frame? How much exposure did you have? And you can start putting a value on that, which is actually really powerful when you're trying to sell sponsorship deals. And if you can guarantee a certain amount of visibility, or as a client, I can say, you said my brand would be visible 25% of the time, I can actually go and challenge them now. Whereas before, it was actually really hard to do. So I think that's a really exciting thing you can do as well. The commentators. This is actually, we spend a lot of time talking to commentators. Today, commentators get piles of papers about that thick for about all the match data. So this is the historic data on how quickly this player ran. This is what Fiji scored the last 20 years. And they spend a lot of time going through that manually. It's really quite time consuming, and it's not really hard during the actual game. That's why we often see two commentators side by side. One's the one who's chatting away saying that you can hear. The other one will sit there and go back and forth with folders, iPads, laptops, trying to figure out what's the data that goes with it. It's quite time consuming. So we decided, you know, we can look at this. And we can look at the key events. So we created a bit of a dashboard, and I'll show you what it looks like in just a second. But if you look at this video, we're taking the bounding boxes, we're highlighting the key events along the bottom. The idea being you can then go back to it, you can have a look at it, doing a really quick replay if you need to. I'll count it up so you have all the data in front of you. What we haven't showed here is you can also then do player overlays. So you can say, you know, this is player A, this is how old they are, this is how long they've been playing, this is their chance of scoring, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of information that you can do on there as soon as you can start recognizing what's happening and who the players are. So it's unlocking a lot of potential information. And here's a quick visualization in the mock-up we did of what some of these can do. So, for example, if you look up top, you can see who's playing, who are the players. There's a timeline, what are the key events during the match, and how does it come up. If you look down the bottom, you can then highlight, click on an event, you can see it, have a quick replay. Because today, a lot of the replays are also done manually. There's people sitting in cutting rooms trying to cut it together. But why can't we automate it? If we know what's happening, we know what got excited, we can even do some crowd voice. So if a crowd gets excited, chances are something happening. So if we took a lot of yelling in the background, we can take that, we can clip that up, and we can then see what's happening in that image, and we can then throw it out right away. So instead of somebody sit there, we can just tweet it out, show it in replays right away. And then we have this last one. I think this is really exciting. So this is taking a lot of the data that's there already, and a lot of that manual data the commentators go through today. It's starting to compare it. So say we're putting Dan Norton versus Dan Norton in this case. Who's most likely to win? If they're going head-to-head, based on their past performance, who's going to win? And we can create some really interesting spider diagrams and insights, which will once again give a lot richer information to the commentators. So, as a quick summary, we looked at automatically recording key events, so be that based on the tackles, scrums, be that based on some of the audio clips we're doing. I didn't mention earlier, but we also did a whistle detection, because we know if the referee's blowing his whistle, that's tied to a key event. We know certain things can only happen before and after a whistle, for example, so you can disregard some frames right away. Qualify the exposure of sponsor logos, so going to sponsor deals, revenue, things like that. That's the kind of key money driver in the back of this as well, which is always good to have a good business case. Speed of content generation, I just touched on that. And then surface insight from commentators and fans in a more efficient way. And I think this is a really exciting way, and this is what World Rugby gets really excited about. So we presented all this back to them and to rugby players as well. I'll show a nice photo there. You might recognize some rugby players in there. We played this all back to them at a number of events we've been running, and they were really excited to see how this can transform the game. Yes, there's still more work to do in some of the vision recognition that can be improved, but it's really going to transform how you generate content and the way you interact with it. So I know I went through that quite quickly, but it's a long journey ahead. You know, we've been doing some really exciting things. I think what's really exciting, we've heard some really interesting presentations throughout the day. Just came out with a factory one, and it's talking about all this real good stuff we're doing with clients. This is something we do because we really enjoy it. As Capgemini, it shows some of our values, and it really brings it to life, and it really shows why we get excited about it, and it's something I hope we can bring to all our colleagues and friends in different companies as well, to show we're passionate about this. We want to make a difference, and something really exciting. And obviously, you can do it here. We spoke to Ben from Heath earlier about seatbelt recognition. It's the same is an algorithm. You can transfer it. So if we can do it with rugby, we can do it in a lot of other things. So I hope this was somewhat inspiring, something a bit different from some of the other things you might have heard, and something we're really passionate about. So yeah, I'll end it there, and thank you very much for listening.